If civil war comes, and I do think it is imminent, you're quite right, it will for us be the price of freedom.
In times of war, loyalty is everything. But in the heart of the Biafran struggle, betrayal lurks in the shadows. Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna, one of the masterminds of Nigeria's first coup in 1966, a man of ambition, a soldier with a secret agenda. And then there was Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, the leader of Biafra, fighting for the survival of his people. But little did he know, a coup was brewing right under his nose. In this rare account, Biafra's former Army Chief of Staff, Major General Madiebo, reveals the shocking truth about Ifeajuna's secret plot to overthrow Ojukwu. What was his plan and why did it fail? Hi guys, welcome to Afriverse Historic. On today's episode, we explore the reason why Major Ifeajuna tried to overthrow his leader, General Ojukwu. But first, let's explore the life of General Ojukwu, the man who led Biafra to war. Do stay tuned and enjoy the ride. Ojukwu was born as the second son of Louis Odumegwu Ojukwu. Louis is the son of a clan chief from Nnewi, Anambra State. Louis married at the age of 25 to a young wife, and after a short union, they separated. Before then, the wife lived at Zongeru, a village in northern Nigeria. After the birth of Ojukwu in November 1933, Louis visited from Lagos and reclaimed Chukwuemeka, his given name. The World War II broke out when Ojukwu was 7. His father sent him to St. Patrick's School and CMS Grammar School, both in Lagos. In 1944, at the age of 10, Ojukwu started studying at King's College, Lagos. In 1945, when Ojukwu had stayed 2 years in King's, his father, who wanted him to be educated in England, made consultations from his English friend. Epsom College in Surrey was recommended, and by 1946, Louis sent Ojukwu there for an advanced education. Ojukwu stayed at Epsom for 6 years. During that time, he excelled in academics, as well as in sports and athletics. He played rugby for the college, winning the spring javelin throwing and discus. At 18, he entered Lincoln College, Oxford, and studied briefly in 1952. Louis wanted his son to become a lawyer, as it was common in Nigeria, but Ojukwu wanted to read modern history. Between 1952 and 1955, he studied law and later switched to history. He also joined the West African Students' Union in Oxford. During his final years, he joined Oxford Rugby Union as a wing three-quarter in Lincoln College's team. Ojukwu graduated with a BA in Arts in 1955 and traveled back to Lagos. He would later return to Oxford to obtain his Masters of Arts. After informing his reluctant parents, Ojukwu joined the Nigerian Civil Service in Udi as an assistant district officer. He was posted to the east since local authorities mandated all young civil administrators to serve in the eastern region. He hardly spoke Igbo since he was born in the north, raised in the west, and educated in England. Hence, he could speak English and Yoruba fluently and satisfactory Hausa. Ojukwu started learning Igbo in order to communicate with his people. Throughout his stay in Udi and other later postings in Umuahia and Aba, from 1955 to 1957, he stayed with people living in the bushes. From Aba, he was posted to Calabar. His father, believing the superstition that Efik women cast spell and bewitches young men, he called his friend, the then Governor General, John Stott McPherson, to terminate the appointment, and he did. Hey guys, I really appreciate it if you take out some time to like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it goes a long way in supporting our efforts. Thank you. Now let's get back to the video. Ojukwu became angry about the termination, and he then applied to join the Nigerian army in 1957. His reason was to escape the influence of his father over his chosen career. The Nigerian army was regarded as a small administration that people who held commissioned offices had their last degree from primary school. Seeing Ojukwu apply to join the Nigerian army surprised the Governor General, High Army Commands, and his father. Louis, through McPherson, ensured that Ojukwu is denied officer cadetship. Hence, he would not enter as a private officer, which is more difficult, but Ojukwu still joined as a private officer at the Army Recruit Depot in Zaria. During a recruit training by Sergeant Musa Fodlami, Ojukwu corrected his English-speaking errors. Surprised by that, he sent Ojukwu to be interviewed by the depot commander and subsequently apply for an officer commission cadetship. It took a month for the paper to be out, and during the waiting, Ojukwu was assigned to the duty of escorting the wife and daughter of the colonel to their horse ride and tennis parties. The application was successful, and from Zaria, Ojukwu first moved to Teshi in Ghana and then to the Officer Cadet School in Eaton Hall, England, in February 1958. After a 6-month course, Ojukwu became a second lieutenant, and before returning to Nigeria in November, he visited the Infantry School, Warminster, and Small Arms School, Hythe. In Nigeria, Ojukwu was posted to the 5th Battalion in Kaduna. He was sent to Ghana's Teshi Frontal School in 1959 to teach infantry tactics, and one of his students was Murtala Mohammed. From Teshi, he taught military law at the Guardian Academy. A British brigadier who was on a visit to Nigeria requested that Ojukwu return as his staff in the brigade at Apapa. The Nigerian army at Central Lagos disputed the request and asked Ojukwu to report to the headquarters in January 1961. Ojukwu returned to Nigeria to witness the 1960 Nigerian independence celebration, but returned to Ghana to finish his work. He returned again to Nigeria before Christmas in 1960 and saw he was already promoted to the rank of captain. From January 1961 to mid-1961, he worked as a staff of Branch A of the new Nigerian Army headquarters located within the building of the Defense Ministry in Lagos. After the independence, many British Army officers were removed, and there were more space for new administration. It was 6 months of Ojukwu's captaincy when he was promoted to the rank of Major in the summer of 1961. Shortly after his promotion, Ojukwu was sent to Kaduna as a staff officer of the 1st Brigade. Zaire also had independence in 1960 and had begun to break into Katanga, a rich mineral province. At the end of 1961, the 1st Brigade were sent there and took over the works of the United Nations Forces at Lulaburi. Ojukwu served as the adjutant to the British commander, Brigadier Mackenzie. The British government informed Lagos about the remaining single vacancy of one Nigerian officer to attend the Joint Service Command and Staff College JSSC course in 1962. Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu was in Kano, northern Nigeria, when Major Patrick Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, on 15 January 1966, executed and announced the bloody military coup in Kaduna, also in northern Nigeria. It is to Ojukwu's credit that the coup lost much steam in the north, where it has succeeded. Lieutenant Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu supported the forces loyal to the Supreme Commander of the Nigerian Armed Forces, Major General Agi Ironsi. Major Nzogo was in control of Kaduna, but the coup had failed in other parts of the country. Agi Ironsi took over the leadership of the country and thus became the first military head of state. On Monday, 17 January 1966, he appointed military governors for the 4 regions. Lieutenant Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu was appointed military governor of the Eastern region. Others were Lieutenant Colonels Hassan Usman Katsina, North, Francis Adekule Fajuyi, West, David Apode Ejo, Midwest. These men formed the Supreme Military Council, with Brigadier B.A.O. Ogundipe, Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, Chief of Staff Army Headquarters, Commodore G.E.A. Ware, Head of Nigerian Navy, Lieutenant Colonel George T. Kurubo, Head of Air Force, Colonel Shitu Alao, etc. On 29 May, the 1966 Igbo pogrom started. This presented problems for Odumegwu Ojukwu, as he did everything in his power to prevent the reprisal and even encourage people to return, as assurances for their safety had been given by his supposed colleagues up in the north and out west. On 29 July 1966, a group of officers, including Majors Murtala Mohammed, Theophilus Danjuma, and Martin Adamu, led the majority of the northern soldiers in a mutiny that later developed into a counter-coup or July remarch. The coup failed in the southern part of Nigeria, where Ojukwu was military governor, due to the effort of the brigade commander and the hesitation of northern officers stationed in the region, partly due to the mutinied leaders in the east being northern while being surrounded by a large eastern population. The Supreme Commander, General Agi Ironsi, and his host, Colonel Fajuyi, were abducted and killed in Ibadan. On acknowledging Ironsi's death, Ojukwu insisted that the military hierarchy be preserved. The most senior army officer after Ironsi was Brigadier Babafemi Ogundipe. However, the leaders of the counter-coup insisted that Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon be made the head of state, although both Gowon and Ojukwu were of the same rank in the Nigerian army. Ogundipe could not muster enough force in Lagos to establish his authority, as soldiers available to him were under Joseph Namveth Garuba, who was part of the coup. This realization led Ogundipe to opt out. Thus, Ojukwu's insistence could not be enforced by Ogundipe unless the coup plotters agreed, which they did not. The fallout from this led to the standoff between Ojukwu and Gowon, leading to a sequel of events that resulted in the Nigerian Civil War. As an act of self-defense against possible extermination, the military governor of the Eastern region, Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, after a meeting of the Advisory Committee of Chiefs and Elders at Enugu in May 1967, was mandated to declare Eastern Nigeria a free, sovereign and independent state. When Ojukwu declared that the Free Eastern region would be known by the title of the Republic of Biafra, he had drawn the curtain of a war that would define a generation, a war whose ghosts still hover around Nigeria to this day. However, despite the fact that secession has been taking the air in Eastern Nigeria since the massive pogroms that saw the end of thousands of Igbo lives, Madiebo was uncertain that 30th of May 1967 was the earliest practicable date for Biafra's independence. All we know now is that it was not. Even the head of state, who had all the facts at the time, he would write years later, in retrospection. Why was it so? Again, the answer is simple. As a military governor in charge of a region in Nigeria, Ojukwu must have known that his appointment as military ruler might be terminated by Lagos and another person appointed in his place. Such an action by Lagos would have greatly embarrassed Ojukwu, in addition to introducing doubts in the minds of the people about the justness of any attempts he would have made to continue in office. Prior to Biafra's advent, though he was the military governor of the Eastern region, a position accorded to him by General Ironsi after the failure of Nzogu's coup, there were many top army officers in the region whom Colonel Ojukwu had no authority over. And become the leader of Biafra, all that changed. Ojukwu became the most powerful figure in the breakaway nation. However, about 8 months later, after the war had begun, Ojukwu's government executed some officers, including Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna, who was the first ever Nigerian to win a Commonwealth Games gold medal. Ifeajuna had been a party to Nzogu's coup, was executed for being part of an attempted coup to unseat Ojukwu. On whether there was indeed an attempt by the Onitsha-born Major Ifeajuna to kick Ojukwu out of power, Madiebo said, "A coup is not a coup until people strike, but if you are planning and you are discovered, then it is an attempted coup, which is as serious as a coup itself. Ifeajuna was attempting. He came to Madiebo and said that the British would like the war to end. Madiebo was at the forefront, and the full fight was going on. The only condition would be that Ojukwu should step down, and Madiebo asked Ifeajuna, if Ojukwu steps down, who is going to take over from him? Ifeajuna said that Madiebo will take over. Madiebo said, no, why me? Ifeajuna replied, there is nobody else. Madiebo told Ifeajuna, you should tell Ojukwu that if he steps down, the war would end. Have you told him? Madiebo asked. Ifeajuna said, I haven't told him. Then Madiebo inquired, what will happen on the occasion Ojukwu refuses to step down? He was told Ojukwu will be forced to. There, that's a coup, Madiebo remarked with a chuckle. A person who forces the head of state to step down or step aside, if it's not a coup, I don't know what is. Madiebo decided to leave the war front and go to Enugu to consult with the army command at the time, Brigadier Hilary Njoku, and also the head of state, because everybody would like the war to end. Ifeajuna told Madiebo that when he gets to Enugu, he should go and see Banjo, who had returned from the Midwest operation. On his way to Enugu, he saw Sir Francis Ibiam in the state car with Ojukwu's advisor, C.C. Mojehu. They were coming towards Madiebo's headquarters, but he didn't stop. He continued to Enugu because he didn't know they were coming to see him. When Madiebo got to Enugu, before he could consult with some officers, Sir Ibiam had returned to Enugu and told him to come to the State House, not to Ojukwu's headquarters, but his own State House. When Madiebo got there, to cut the long story short, Sir Ibiam said that some people were trying to cause confusion and asked Madiebo, does he believe in the war or not? Of course I believe in the war. That's why I'm there in the bush, Madiebo replied. Eventually, Sir Ibiam took him to see Ojukwu, and there, Ojukwu said that Madiebo should become the army commander. It was years later as army commander that Madiebo had full information that Ifeajuna had already finished the plan of the coup, and that the coup plotters had decided that it was either he took over from Ojukwu or they got rid of him. They felt that I would be in their way. The day I knew that we were trying to get at and overthrow Ojukwu was the day they were executed, Madiebo recounted. One of the executed plotters of the aborted coup was Lieutenant Colonel Victor Banjo, a Yoruba officer who led the invasion into the Midwest, an event some historians argue to be the greatest offensive to be launched by Biafra throughout the war. However, Colonel Banjo's legacy had created room for debate. The manner the operation was carried out left questions and doubts in the mind of top Biafran officers. And to this day, his loyalty to the Biafran cause still remains the subject of controversy. Was Colonel Victor Banjo a betrayal of the Biafran people? If he wasn't at the beginning, by the time of the operation he had turned, Madiebo said, you know, you can change your mind at any stage. Banjo probably went to that operation determined to reach the West and disorganize Gowon in Lagos. But he got to Benin and exposed himself to the British Embassy and other embassies. They convinced him to drop the operation, and he changed overnight. Some of the sudden changes by Colonel Banjo included unnecessary delays, broadcasting a speech from Benin which completely made Ojukwu leave it, reorganizing troops which had not yet fired a shot and cutting Ojukwu out of his plans, and ordering the withdrawal from Benin when the advancing enemy was 15 miles away from the town. These strange, unauthorized changes made the failure of the operation unavoidable. If I had gone to see him at Nkalago, he would have killed me, Madiebo said. On why Madiebo believes that he would have been executed, he said, oh yes, the aim of my visit to Enugu was to inform the government of what Ifeajuna had told me. I didn't know I was about to expose their determination to overthrow Ojukwu, and they, the coup plotters, didn't want me to get to the army headquarters, so they said I should go and see Banjo first. He was then at the ECM flat in Enugu, but I didn't go there, so the answer is that he turned to be a saboteur, in my own view. As Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna and Colonel Victor Banjo faded from the scene, Colonel Alexander assumed the position of the Biafran army commander, establishing himself as the third most powerful figure in the nation. His predecessor, Brigadier Hilary Njoku, and the head of state had a rather strained relationship from the outbreak of the war. Under Hilary, which was not his fault, the Biafran army lost from Nsukka to Enugu in 2 weeks. The force that attacked Biafra was far more than they ever dreamt of. Don't forget, the whole Nigerian army was in the north and west and had only one battalion stationed in the eastern Nigeria. After that one battalion, about 2/3 were Northerners that had gone home. So in the whole Nigerian army, not more than 300 were in Biafra. When they attacked, all the people Biafra had as soldiers were trained overnight at Enugu. They were not really soldiers, so it was easy for the enemy to capture from Nsukka to Enugu. Njoku lost ground so much that he was confused, so probably because he disagreed with Ojukwu, probably because he had no solution to the problem, he was changed. In fact, when Madiebo took over the army, within 2 weeks, the army had disintegrated, but Nigeria didn't exploit their collapse, and Madiebo had 1 week to reorganize the force at Akegbe. He reformed the army, and Biafra began to resist Nigeria for the next years. When the Biafran resistance failed, in January 1970, General Alexander Madiebo was among the influential figures that Ojukwu took along on a desperate and definitive flight to Ivory Coast, where President Houphouët Boigny, one of the few African leaders that officially recognized Biafra, granted them political asylum. In 1981, Ojukwu began campaigning to return to Nigeria. Nigerian President Shehu Aliyu Usman Shagari granted a pardon to Ojukwu on 18 May 1982, allowing him to return to Nigeria as a private citizen. Ojukwu re-entered Nigeria from Ivory Coast on 18 June. Ojukwu declared his candidacy for the Nigerian Senate in 1983. The official tally showed him losing by 12,000 votes, though a court attempted to reverse the ruling in September of that year, citing fraud in the election results. However, the disputed result was rendered moot when the Shagari government fell in 1983 Nigerian coup d'etat on 31st December. In early 1984, the Buhari regime jailed hundreds of political figures, including Ojukwu, who was held at the Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison. He was released later that year. Ojukwu married Bianca Ono, former Miss Intercontinental and future ambassador, in 1994, his third marriage. The couple had 3 children, Afamefuna, Chineme, and Nwachukwu. In the Fourth Republic era, Ojukwu unsuccessfully contested the presidency in 2003 and 2007. On 26 November 2011, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu died in the United Kingdom after a brief illness, aged 78. The Nigerian army accorded him the Nigerian military accolade and conducted a funeral parade for him in Abuja, Nigeria, on 27 February 2012, the day his body was flown back to Nigeria from London, before his burial on Friday 2nd March. He was buried in a newly built mausoleum in his compound at Nnewi. Before his final interment, he had an elaborate week-long funeral ceremony in Nigeria alongside Chief Obafemi Awolowo, where his body was carried around the 5 eastern states, Imo, Abia, Enugu, Ebonyi, and Anambra, including the nation's capital Abuja. Memorial services and public events were also held in his honor in several places across Nigeria, including Lagos and Niger State, his birthplace, as far as Dallas, Texas, United States. His funeral was attended by Goodluck Jonathan, former president of Nigeria, and late ex-president Jerry Rawlings of Ghana, among other personalities. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I would really love to know your thoughts about the alleged plot of Ifeajuna to overthrow General Chukwuemeka. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to smash a like and subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification button to get more content like this about African history. It's been Nan from Afriverse Historic. See you in the next video.